Welcome back. You're listening to Home Wizards. I'm Cindy Dole.
I'm Eric Stromer.
And, it's one of those things where if you love plants like Eric and I do, it's okay. We all eventually kill a plant. We don't want to, but sometimes it happens. And we thought we would try to, in the name of saving plants, try to help you diagnose if you are watering too much or watering too little. In other words, what killed your plant? And it's tricky.
It is tricky, and your instinct is to always, I think, overwater.
Yeah, I know.
Don't you think?
We overlove. We overgive.
We overgive, and especially when it comes to the store-bought, the ones we get. What are those beautiful flowering, orchids?
Oh, I gotcha.
The orchid. It sits in the water. I've watered it too many times.
Yeah.
You taught me. This
ice
is one
cubes.
of the. Thank you. Ice cubes.
And how many ice cubes?
Just one. Just put an ice cube in the orchid and let her melt. And
it's
guess what?
It's a drip irrigation.
It's a drip irrigation system.
Sometimes I've even gone full blown and added maybe 5.
I may have inadvertently killed so many orchids by overwatering that it feels like I'm a horrible dictator or something.
No.
Ice cubes. That's all you need.
So let's talk about signs of a plant affected by too much water. How do you know if your plants have too much water? And this is the really kind of hard part, is that guess what? Yellow leaves can be both underwater and overwater.
That's the confusing part.
That's like, wait a minute, what did I do wrong? But
Right.
Guess what? There's other things that are going to help you understand. Okay, so for instance, let's focus first on overwater. The leaves are going to be yellow, but now what's going to be different than if you were to have underwatered? Again, the plant in 2 columns, yellow leaves. The overwater column is now the plant looks wilted. It's not, if it's overwatered, it's going to look really wilted, and the roots are going to be rotting, and there's no new growth, and the young leaves are going to turn brown, and then the soil itself, you talked about that orchid and overwatering it.
Yeah.
The soil, or those little bark pellets that you use for orchids for inside, it's going to get green with algae.
Oh,
So
that's it, huh?
So that's basically and why it happens is because plants need to breathe. And a lot of times, they breathe through their roots. And when there's too much water, the roots can't take in the air, and so they basically you're suffocating them.
Okay, that makes total sense. Because I've done it many, many times. But I love, there's a couple things I love. It's the trick with the ice cube. And then fill her up once, let her drain. Fill her up twice, let her drain. Fill her up 3 times, let her drain, and watch your plant unfold into a beautiful, gorgeous, abundant, living thing.
Well, that's a good watering technique, because a lot of us, if you're watering with a hose or with, a watering can or whatever, we're now talking about probably container plants in some cases.
Right.
A lot of times people will just go once and then they just go, and it's so superficial that it hasn't had a chance to get to the deep roots, and especially like for trees. So like we have this pepper tree in our front yard, and even though it's a drought-tolerant plant, we've been having quite a drought in the California area, and even the drought-tolerant plants need water. And so this guy, an arborist, said, go buy this thing. It's called urea, and it's a bag of these. They almost look like styrofoam balls or pellets.
Yeah.
But it's this nitrogen absorption thing, and you kind of sprinkle it like chicken feed around this tree, and then you water it and deep soak it like for an hour. And it totally changed. It got it deep into the roots, and the tree that was in crisis is now thriving.
Well, and also tell them about where you water the trees.
Oh yeah, well you tell them.
It's the old canopy. You got to remember that the canopy of the tree, when you look up, is where the roots are in reverse underground. So people actually have a tendency, and I was doing this for years before I understood this, but you can't just water right at the base of the tree, because all the root systems are crawling out toward that same diameter that the canopy produces above the ground, obviously. So you want to water in that same circle pattern that your canopy is above, right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's a valuable lesson for tree watering, and also the soaking. Mm-hmm. One of those soaker hoses that has the hole in it, if you can line that around the canopy line and just turn it on for as long as you need to saturate the soil, it makes a huge difference.
Huge difference. And yeah, those soaker hoses, they usually are like a black hose with a screw at the end or a little, knob at the end. And they have like millions of little holes and they just kind of, right?
Yeah.
But I made the mistake too of letting, not only we would use the soaker hose, but I was letting the water hit the trunk. And that also is bad because while you are underwatering the tree, you're not getting the canopy like you talked about. You're overwatering the trunk, so you're like, it's a double whammy because a lot of like citrus trees, a lot of trees, oak trees, they don't want their trunk to get wet.
No.
It's like they're now sitting in muck.
Well, it's like having, great shoes, but someone sprays your legs with water.
Terrible.
Come on, forget about it. By the way, that's not a great analogy, but it sure looked good in my mind at the time. But, the thing I think, too, that I would love to impart, and you can attest to this, too, from just having your oak trees trimmed. In California, the oak tree is a revered tree that can't just be messed with. You have to have a permit to trim the trees. And most of the tree trimmers that are out there driving in the trucks, stopping at your house and saying, hey, can I trim your trees? I'm going to just lob the top half of the tree off and hope for the best. You got to really make sure that you have somebody who knows what they're doing when they're trimming trees. It's not just lobbing branches off. It's thinning and pruning, and it is a very specific thing. So I just want to speak to the idea that you had the arborist come talking about the urea. If you can ever get an arborist on your property to just give you a quick sort of primer,
an evaluation,
it really makes a huge difference in the longevity of the trees.
And that's for free. They'll give you an estimate.
Absolutely.
It was really very, very, helpful.
Exactly.
Now let's talk about the lack of water, because we talked about the overwater, but now what are the signs of too much water? Well, guess what? Again, it's those darn yellow leaves.
Sure.
But that's okay. We're going to know more than that. Don't worry about it because I know it gets confusing. If the yellow leaves are in both columns, where do I go? Do I get more water or do I stop? But lack of water, if plants don't get enough water, now the difference is they drop leaves.
Yeah, that's right.
That's the key. So they're not only yellow, but they are curling and they're dropping. That means they are struggling. They have no water.
They got nothing left.
So just because it's yellow doesn't necessarily mean that it has too much water. It could mean now that it has not enough because, again, look for the curling of the leaf and it's dropped on the ground.
That's good.
And now, well, yeah.
I mean, it's interesting. It's good information. Yeah.
So get that in your brain because now when you're walking around, you're seeing in your yard, you're going to forget. You go, oh, yeah, now I remember. Yellow leaves, if the yellow leaves are there, that could mean that I've overwatered. The lack of water is that they're curling and they're falling off.
Gotcha.
Like a ficus tree. Have you ever had a ficus tree?
I have, and boy, those leaves, when they go, they go.
They just start falling off. You go, what the heck's going on? Well, that was because of a lack of water. So an effective watering is going to also help prevent, them drying out. Again, the triple thing, especially if it's in a container, fill it to the top, fill 1, 2, 3 times, but also don't forget mulch at the top to conserve and keep the water
keep
trapped.
it in. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Especially where I live, boy, if we don't have mulch and you water, it's a waste of time. It's a desert, for crying out loud. You got to have the mulch to keep the moisture in.
Yeah. You want to trap it not only in the soil with some of the bark, right? But in the containers, it's going to double the amount of water that you'll be saving.
And keeps weeds at bay.
Yeah.
At the same time.
Yeah. Some other signs of things that could be killing your plant. I mean, it could be not only a situation of water, too little or too much, but it could be some different diseases like powdery mildew. Do you ever see signs of powdery mildew?
I have seen the powdery mildew on roses that I would water at night.
And why is that? Don't want to do that.
Never going to do it again.
They don't want to be wet at night.
I had a consultation with the plant doctor.
Good.
You know who that is?
Which one?
Cindy Dolan.
Oh, right.
Yeah. She puts on a lab coat and tells you about your plants.
But a lot of plants, I mean, would you want to be sitting in water all night long?
I'm not doing it. Heck no, I wouldn't.
So you want to think in the morning.
I know, you're right.
And what's the difference between the yellow leaves? If it's not enough water?
If it falls off and it's yellow, there's not enough water.
Okay, we
See
got it.
See how easy it is?
Done. All right. Graduation.
Thank you.
Eric Stromer, Cindy Dole. All this will go on the website, yourhomewizards.com. Remember this, the key is under the mat.
The fire while you place the flowers in the vase that you bought today.
Home Wizards. Home Wizards. Home Wizards. Improve your home. Improve your life.
Right now, I am cooking a chicken, and it will be done in an hour and maybe 20 minutes. It's a 8-pound chicken, rotisserie, and it's cooking in the GE Cafe Advanium. Just for you, Eric Stromer and Peter Montoya.
2 things I'd like to say. 1, I'm jealous.
You don't have to be jealous.
I covered the oven. I covered the oven.
Yeah.
Okay. 2, I'm going to get to eat a nice hot chicken just as soon as we finish this lovely broadcast.
So the idea is this is it has 4 things in one. You can basically rise bread in it. You can speed cook, like you can make this chicken that's like it's roasted, oven roasted, but in half the time.
Sure.
It's a microwave and it's a convection, all in one handy dandy oven, and it's amazing. It's nothing else like it out there.
It's and by the way, it produces, and I've had the food from this fine oven, succulent, delicious, tasty items.
Yeah. So if you're thinking about, amping up your kitchen game, do check out the GE Cafe series and look for the Advanium oven, GE Cafe.